Most people probably love to travel, to discover new places and countries. Me, I'm the complete opposite. I hardly ever leave my small town. My life is pretty mundane and uneventful. Work, home, the occasional meetup with friends. I'm a loner. I spend a lot of time reading, watching old movies, and evenings in front of my computer screen. It was on one such evening that I met a girl on a forum. Within a week, she was all I could think about. I haven't had many romantic relationships in my life, so this time I fell hard and fast. Without much thought, I suggested we meet. The fact that Catherine lived 200 miles away didn't deter me. We agreed to meet on Saturday. I booked a hotel and bought a train ticket. Everything was perfect. A sunny day, great mood, the bustling train station. Unfortunately, something went wrong, and I boarded the wrong train. I only realized the horror of my mistake a couple of hours into the journey. Eventually, I had no better idea than to get off at the next station. It was evening when I disembarked at a random station. It was around 8 p.m., but the sun hadn't set yet. Stepping out of the train, I immediately went to check the schedule. No tickets were sold here. The station seemed abandoned, but there was a schedule, an old sheet announcing the next train wouldn't arrive for nearly 2 hours. I was supposed to be at a cafe with the girl, not stuck at a station, so I decided not to wait and looked for other options. I found myself in a sort of village, a train platform, a few rundown houses, and a forest, a very odd place. Right by the tracks there was a store, apparently the most popular spot for locals. It was the only place with people around. I headed over. The crowd was peculiar. A tall, heavy woman with a swollen gray face, an old woman in a worn jacket of similar appearance, and 3 men with gray, lifeless faces. They were chatting among themselves. I approached. Any idea how I can get out of here? They all turned, and I immediately felt uneasy. Their faces were all the same, gray, lifeless, swollen. But it was their look, no hostile, malicious. "The schedule's at the station," one of them replied. "I saw it. The next train isn't for a while." "Is there any other transport?" "A bus?" "The schedule's at the station," he repeated maliciously. One spoke, but they all looked at me just as maliciously, just as hostilely. I felt uncomfortable, but quickly dismissed the strange thoughts. Their looks could be chalked up to dislike for outsiders. And to them, with my city clothes, I must seem like an alien from another world. I decided to head back to the station, but halfway there I thought better of it. I checked the store. Maybe the clerk would be friendlier. Inside, besides her, was a woman with 2 children buying candy and alcohol. She paid, turned to me, and her face was the same, lifeless, swollen, malicious. I glanced at the children and recoiled. They looked the same, but their gaze was different, openly greedy, expectant. The mother scolded them, and they looked away. I felt decidedly uncomfortable. Gray and swollen faces might be explained away by alcohol, but not the children's looks. I turned to the clerk. "Can you tell me how to get to the city? Are there buses? It's a long wait for the train." She looked at me silently, thankfully not with hatred, but with something else. "There's one, but it goes to the next village. From there, another bus, or wait for the train," she said quietly. "And the bus stop?" She seemed hesitant, uneasy. "You're better off waiting at the platform. It'll be dark soon. By the time you get to the village, the train will be here, and even then you'll just be waiting for another train." That seemed sensible. I resigned myself to missing the cafe and headed back. The sun was almost set. Only the old woman remained by the store. On my way, I called out to the woman with children ahead of me. "Do you know where the bus leaves from?" Reluctantly, she turned. Her eyes were filled with such malice that I instinctively stepped back. It was the look of a mother at someone who'd pushed her child in front of a train. The children turned too, their gaze just as greedy. just as probing. The woman rolled her eyes and grudgingly said, "The schedule's at the station." I sat on the platform as the sun dipped lower. I didn't want to be here in the dark. On the other hand, there was no one around. People had dispersed. It was empty, nothing to fear. Out of boredom, I surveyed the surroundings. A few houses on either side of the railway tracks, followed by a forest. No lights in the houses, no satellite dishes, no parked cars, nothing. Where was the highway, the road, anything besides the store? Probably beyond the forest. No sound of cars, no sounds at all. Looking down, I saw a small pond under the railway tracks. A bridge. Under the bridge, to my shock, I almost fell onto the damn tracks. The strange people from the store were sitting there, watching me. Not just watching, staring. One of them was smirking. I looked away. Well, maybe they had nowhere else to drink, and I was their entertainment. Strange, though, how quietly they sat. I looked ahead. On the opposite platform, the heavy woman settled in, staring intently at me. A light turned on in a house by the tracks. I felt a flicker of relief, a sign of civilization. But it was short-lived. Faces appeared at the window, children's faces, staring greedily, expectantly, as if waiting for something. Screw this. I bolted to the store, preferring a bus over staying here with them. I'd asked the clerk where the stop was. I had almost reached the platform's edge when she came out. Closing up the store, I sped up. She turned. Her expression changed and she yelled, "Stay on the platform." I froze. "How do I leave?" I asked, my voice shaking, and I felt ashamed. "The train won't come for a while. How do I leave?" She paused, then said quietly, "You can't leave now. Stay on the platform. Don't go down." She turned and left. The sun had set. Only one lamp remained. I stepped back, leaned over to look down. It was dark. The strange people were sitting, watching me. The woman on the opposite platform was also watching. The children in the window, all the same. Their expressions, predatory. They didn't look away. Waiting. Fear made me want to cry. What do these psychos want? What do they need from me? What do you want? I leaned towards the strange company. I shouted, almost in falsetto, embarrassed. Silence, smiling. Finally, one spoke. "Come down." He looked at me, shaking a bottle, his smile wider, more terrifying. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed the woman to the side moved. I turned. Indeed. She leaned forward, froze, watching with some predatory excitement, waiting. I sat on the bench, eyes to the ground. Maybe they were just messing with me. Screw it. I won't go down. They don't come up here. Fine. Psychos. Another train arrived from the city, just one passenger. He dashed past the woman, who barely had time to stand up. He crossed the tracks in 2 jumps and was beside me in a moment. "Want some whiskey?" I jumped up, startled, and whispered, "No." "Why not?" "I'm visiting my brother. He lives here." I was late. Had to take the last train. "Keep me company. I can't be sober here. It's too creepy," he said, his voice trembling. He leaned over, looked down. "They're here already," he commented and opened the bottle. "Who?" I asked. "Them," he gestured. "Come on, have a drink." I agreed, just so he wouldn't leave. He handed me the bottle. "You from the city?" I nodded. I could tell right away. "What are you doing here, especially so late?" "Took the wrong train," I replied, and took a sip of the warm whiskey. "You get distracted. You won't be catching any trains at all," he laughed, took the bottle back, and drank. I tensed and stepped back. "Why?" "Because. Don't worry, I'm just joking. They won't climb up here. But don't you go near the houses or even the dogs won't find you." He laughed again. "Stay here. Wait for your train. You'll be fine." He drank again, put away the bottle, and walked to the other end of the platform, then down, running toward the nearest house. Down below, someone seemed to jerk suddenly, but then went still. I shivered. "Come down." It came from below. "Come on, there won't be any trains until morning," said the heavy woman across the way. "Got a light?" The old woman by the store spoke up. The children came out of the house giggling. The mother herded them back in. I checked the time, 20 minutes until the train, if the schedule was accurate. "The last bus is leaving soon," the woman with children gestured to me. "Come on, I'll walk you. You won't wait for the train until morning. The schedule's old, you'll be sitting here all night." Her voice somehow became kinder, even caring, but so tense, fake. I physically felt everyone around tense up. Eyes drilled into me. Greedy, malicious, hungry eyes. People? No, these were not people. I remained silent. The train didn't come in 20 minutes. I waited for it until morning, surrounded by these strange beings, yelling for me to come down, offering a place to stay, tempting me to approach them, to take some food, convincing me there would be no more trains, just one bus. And in any case, I'd have to come down. At 5:45 a.m., the train arrived. I jumped inside, panicked, looked around. Almost no passengers, most were sleeping, some guy was reading. The conductor gave me a strange look, but said nothing. I nearly collapsed from relief. Normal people. I walked to the end of the wagon, sat down, and stared out the window. The same thoughts circled in my head. What if I had come down from the platform? Was it all in my imagination? Just locals messing with a scared city fool? Unfriendly, malicious villagers? Unpleasant, but still human? I don't know. What I do know is that I definitely don't want to go back and check.